Fellow XLM or Hedera HBAR, which of these two powerhouse cryptocurrencies are the obvious best buy right now? Well, of course, we have to shift our thinking, not so towards 2030 or 2035, but shift our thinking to the short term, okay? 2025, guys. And so this video will, of course, give us the answers. I'm going to lay this out in a very easy to digest format for everyone to go ahead and follow. And of course, apply this research in whatever way you want to. If you want to add on more, or obviously just use this as a guide, then you're most welcome to. Now, let me direct your attention to the sheet here. And we're, of course, going to break it down step by step. So we have HBAR over here, and we have XLM. Now, HBAR right now is about a $1.6 billion market cap project, right? So some of you might think, oh my God, that's way too large. You know, I know some of you out there want small micro caps. And I definitely want to challenge your way of thinking, especially right now in probably the last stages of the bear market, because we have the same great projects at extremely cheap prices. Let me show you an example in 2 seconds with Cardano, and it's going to hopefully blow your socks off and give you some better perspective. Now, on the other side of it, we obviously have XLM at a $3.8 billion market cap right now at 14 cents, okay? So essentially, XLM is more or less double the market cap value of HBAR, okay? So if you have a look over here, HBAR right now, this is since, the last 12 months. So pretty much the inception of the bear market, which I've always said is a good indication because, well, a bear market typically has the best possible prices or times to buy a project. And if a project is somewhat near the lows of the bear market, well, that's a pretty good time to buy, right? And as you can see here with HBAR, it's only 45% up from its low, not even a 2x up from its lowest point. And its lowest point actually was the first of the first this year when Bitcoin was at about $16,500. So Bitcoin was itself at its lowest point in the last few years, and obviously we had HBAR down at those lows as well. So yes, in my opinion, now is a fantastic time to DCA into HBAR. On the other side of the coin, we have XLM. Now, XLM's more or less about in the same situation, right? Only an 84% up, and this is fantastic considering, well, got a massive pump recently, okay? So 84% considering the price was about 14 cents down here, it was more or less about, again, 84% down, or at least 84% up from that price. So yeah, we're not too far up, but obviously we were a little bit lower recently, okay? So we were about 7 cents or so down here, and now we were recently at about 10 cents, okay? So it would have been a bit more optimal, but again, in the grand scheme of things, it's actually not too bad. Again, I was covering XLM extensively a few months ago when it was at about $2.5 billion market cap, but we can't go back in time. So let me explain to you kind of with all of this in mind, right, which of course is the better project for 2025? Well, again, this is a multifaceted question. We have to break it down in a few layers. And one of the things I want to remind you before we get into breaking it down is that Cardano, right? This is Cardano from current to inception, right? When it first, at its genesis, when it was first created. And we saw back in the bear market, right, in 2020, right, 2020 here, 2021, what were the prices of Cardano? Well, it was at a 1.6 and also a 3.8, and yes, you can definitely check this, $billion market cap. And where did it end up? Well, it ended up at actually just over a $95 billion market cap at the very tip of the 2022 bull run, which means, yes, both of these projects can run up. Actually, HBAR, strictly talking here, 59x, if we were talking, in Cardano's case, and a 25x from the current price of XLM to the top of Cardano, 25x. So yes, it does make a big difference, right? So we're talking about more or less a 2x in terms of market cap size for the difference here, but you can see the multiples, right? 59x for HBAR and 25x for XLM, okay? So, but we're not talking about Cardano here. We have to obviously reassess the price predictions for these projects individually, which we'll get to in just a second, but I wanted to make that very, very clear. Yes, these projects can have massive multiples. And remember, we're going to have more money flowing into the market in 2025. Of course, Cardano was definitely a freak show of a project, but still, I definitely do think we can get there. So I want to just remind you before we get into that price prediction is that, look, guys, these projects are not only focused within the Web3 atmosphere, but they're also focused heavily right now into the ISO 20022 standard, which is a very complicated new type of financial messaging system adopted within many different economies, right? So the US has an instant payment service called FedNow, and pretty much every other country or region does as well. The United Kingdom has faster payments, China has IBPS, European Union has SCT, and Australia has NPP, right? Now, these are being adopted at different stages and at different levels within the economy, but the overall goal is to get these instant payment services adopted and intimately within the whole entire financial system. And obviously ISO 20022 will be the way that all these essentially economies connect together. And as you can see here, They range in different sizes, of course. So guys, I want to tell you right now, these projects, of course, complement the Web3 space, but they also complement the Web 2 space. So of course, they're great projects, nevertheless, for the long-term hold as well, in my opinion. So in the Web 3 space, we have XLM primarily focused on their infrastructure for developers to build on, called Soroban, offering things like payments, DeFi, and tokenization. Overall, the narratives I'm giving it is a 9 out of 10, which is very, very good. And over here for HBAR, it's of course got its public layer 1 network, the HBAR token itself, offering things like gaming, supply chain, IoT, tokenization, you name it, okay? Again, 9 out of 10. Probably even argue HBAR is a 9.5 out of 10 if we're being technical here, okay? So let's get into the first part. We've established both these projects are powerhouses in their own right. I think most of us watching this video would already know both these projects intimately. And if you don't, I'll leave 2 videos at the end of this video for you to be more familiar with both these projects. Now, number 1, meeting our expected ROI. If you're going to buy either one of these projects, you have to assess what you want out of the market in general. And this is what we have to do, right? Assess how much we want out of either of these projects. And if one doesn't meet our expectations, it's simple. We have to find a project that does, right? Higher or lower, depending, okay? So over here for HBAR, I think the minimum it'll go to in 2025 is 69 cents and a maximum of $2. So either a $25 billion market cap to a $73 billion market cap. Now, I must say, I definitely do think this is going to go a lot higher, but this is a somewhat reasonable. I probably do expect it to hit this level of price. I've said in the past, way up to $5 in a Mickey Mouse world. So keep that in mind. This is a very reasonable price prediction here. And so $2,500 invested today will net you a 14x at minimum, so 34 grand, and at max about 100 grand, okay? So that's pretty damn good if you ask me, of course. Nothing's set in stone. This is my price predictions, okay? Do you want to know how I got to those price predictions? By the way, I do have videos on how I got there. Now, on the XLM side of things, at the minimum, right, I expect 40 cents, which is a $20 billion market cap, and at max, a $105 billion market cap, which will put the price at $3. Therefore, turning about $2,800, so 20,000 tokens, which is pretty much the same as we spent on HBAR over here, netting you $8,000 and then at max $60,000. So as you can see, obviously, if we're talking about, okay, if you're someone who wants the most amount of returns, if you want to pick a project at current prices, is the best to buy for returns? Well, guess what? HBAR is definitely your pick so far, okay? So this is, of course, relying on my price predictions. I'm pretty confident in those, but I definitely do think they can raise the bar. And we'll talk about a potential issue with XLM in just a second that might actually reduce that or extend that even more. Number 2, right, meeting your risk tolerance levels itself. So we have to assess, right, are these projects meeting your risk? If you're someone who can't lose a single penny, well, you have to take that in consideration. But if you're someone who has 100% risk, you know, you can lose anything and be fine with that. You'd sleep at night still. Well, we have to assess the projects based on that. This is things I always talk about on the channel, but we're going to apply it in this case. So ensure you are risk adverse, meaning that you're, not overexposing yourself to risky projects. However, it's also important to consider the risk/reward levels as well, which we will assess in just a second, right? So this is my risk wheel here. We have things like low risk, medium reward, low risk, low reward, medium risk, high reward, and high risk, extremely high reward. These are like the micro cap projects. These are projects under like 150 to 300 mil. And these projects are pretty much HBAR and XLM. Okay, so I think it's pretty safe to say that both HBAR and XLM are very, very similar when it comes to the risk assessment. Again, they're both in that same category, in my opinion. However, in this case, I would argue HBAR is actually the clear winner because XLM is still bound to the XRP lawsuit, which could swing either way. Now, I think most of us could probably say, hey, it's probably going to be a positive outcome, or at least have a positive outcome, maybe mixed with a negative outcome, but it's still too risky for those of you who don't want that extra little bit of risk. So let me elaborate on what I'm saying here. So we have 2 negative situations versus 1 positive situation, right? So the first negative is XRP lawsuit is still ongoing in 2025, therefore XLM doesn't move that much and the rest of the market does. Number 2 is XRP loses the lawsuit itself, and obviously XLM's going to crap the bed, but we all know that probably the whole market will as well. It's kind of like a given. I do think XLM will definitely suffer the most right next to XRP. And the best situation here is XRP wins the lawsuit and then XLM skyrockets. So if you're someone who looks at risk, those are your options, right? So I definitely do think in this case, again, HBAR definitely does win because it doesn't have this situation happening, of course, right? Lower market cap doesn't really mean too much in this case, right? Doesn't mean it's a better or more established project. We have to look at the next thing, which is connections and the roadmap, matter of fact, because a lot of people will be confused at this, right? Because well-known companies that are affiliated to the networks creates more trust with retail. You can say this for yourself. If you see a project with more established Web 2 connections, Google, Amazon, so on and so forth, that actually are working with those companies, not just leveraging their infrastructure, it makes you more confident, right? Plain and simple. Now, the door will also open to other partnerships in this case, which could be announced, obviously, in the bull market, right? That's supposed to be bull market, not bear market, all right? So, of course, the larger connections you have and the more larger Web 2 connections, it's good because obviously that means you can connect with more Web 2 companies easier, right? It's not what you know all the time, it's also who you know in the world. And that obviously will mean that we might see some massive connections and partnerships flourish from these projects, which is very important because this chart right now on ADA, it's funny because I'm using ADA quite a bit in these examples, but we saw here with Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin's price in red here was going up and then it came down. And what happened? Well, ADA found it spiked over here. And it can be things from narratives. It can be things like roadmap events / announcements. Pretty much altcoins follow the general sentiment of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's having a good day. Altcoins have a good day. Bitcoin bad day, altcoins bad day, typically, right? Well, we all know that the windmill or the waterfall effect, Bitcoin gets sell off, it goes into the large cap alts or Ethereum and then it flows down. Well, that's true. Of course, it does have some merit, but when it's actually bad news, the whole market falls. Well, what we have to look at here is if the individual projects themselves have good news, right, from connections, like we said, it's very important to establish this. Also, roadmap events that come out that get a lot of the market intrigue, not just the audience of the project, and also narratives, right? So that's why it's important for us at the beginning of the video to establish, hey, these have good narratives, 9 out of 10 respectively. Right? Because again, they'll break away from Bitcoin or the general sentiment like ADA did over here, right? So we don't just sell all at once. It's not like one massive big run in the cycle where we all just magically sell. Okay, as you can see here, ADA had its highest point like a few months before Bitcoin had its highest point. So had you waited for Bitcoin's highest point, you'd be selling down here or down here, right? So we have to make sure it's very important that we keep up to date with our projects every single day. If you can't spend 5, 10, 15 minutes on, research per project every single day, if that's like going to be 3 or 4 hours for you, then you've got too many projects, right? Because something big might come out and you're going to miss it, plain and simple, right? So what we have to do here is have a look at the connections first, then the roadmap. We've obviously already established more or less the narrative. So on the HBAR side of things, a real big unlock is they have a governing council here. They have 39 spots on their governing council. Right now, they only have 29 spots filled. So they have 10 more spots essentially to fill. And we're talking massive names here, right? ABRDN, Avery Dennison, Boeing, Chainlink, right? Dell, IBM, Google, FPOS, need I go on, right? Ubisoft, okay? ServiceNow. So we have massive names here, LG. And so honestly, when these connections come out, when these governing council members are established, especially if they're well known and respected, which is a massive part of the criteria for these people, then yes, the price will appreciate. Also, we have enterprise applications. Now, this is only enterprise applications, right? There's so many more applications in DeFi and stuff on HBAR. And as you can see, this is a massive list already. Hence why they're pushing about 1500 TPS pretty much all the time, right? Because they've already got large connections in the space. So HBAR is definitely killing it, but don't get me wrong, so is XLM. The really difficult thing about XLM is, remember, it's a primarily payment network, okay? So yes, it does have some massive connections, right? BP Ventures is huge. There are some more here. I've just got to go ahead and find them. PwC is massive as well. And I know I'm missing 1 or 2 here. And of course, these aren't companies that we really do know like off the top of our head, okay? These are projects that you really only know when you look into them. Like all the HBAR projects over here, I didn't know about them until I did the research on them, okay? So they are massive. Don't get me wrong, guys. Stellar is an amazing project, hence why it's so high in the market cap. MoneyGram is another massive project that has like 400,000 locations worldwide, right? So XLM, in terms of its enterprise connections, is doing a fantastic job. And I don't want anyone to think I'm saying otherwise, right? But I definitely do think HBAR has a wild card here, which is the governing council, all right? So in my opinion, HBAR definitely wins in terms of the connections. Now, roadmap, I'm probably going too much over time here, so I'll be quite quick here. But essentially, we need to focus on 2024, at least late 24 and early 25 to mid 25 roadmap events, as they're going to help push the project, as I said to you in the example before with ADA, right? They will help push them out of the market to give us opportunities to sell, right? Very important. And in this case, right, we have some pretty big updates coming out for HBAR. They recently updated their roadmap. So we have prioritized for development over here, which is their community nodes being updated, and also possible look at sharding. Lehman, the founder of HBAR and also the creator of the hash graph, which is the main technology of Hedera, mentioned in a Gossip About Gossip podcast months ago that he wants to incorporate sharding, which will make the network infinitely scalable. And this, I believe, is one step in that direction. Over here for XLM, I've gone through this roadmap multiple times on the channel. They have some massive things, right? They're focusing on utility, which is super important for a network like this, right? So they're bringing out and they're focusing on, bettering their Soroban layer, which is, again, their step into the DeFi world, which is going to house all the different decentralized finance applications, which is beautiful. Okay, they're also focusing on increasing the speed and traffic, also bringing in tier 1 assets that you use in the real world, like gold, silver, so on and so forth, essentially making it a very viable product for the large people to come in and use. And again, so they're pretty much making it, catered towards their actual target audience, right? They're also focusing on, where is it here? On and off-board ramps. I can't find it, but there definitely are somewhere in here is mentioning on and off-board ramps. So essentially, guys, it's an amazing project, right? I definitely do think in terms of like what the roadmaps say in front of our eyes, I think XLM definitely wins it. But again, HBAR wins the connection. So, if we're talking by a pure skill base, then yes, the obvious winner here is HBAR, especially for those of you who want the most amount of rewards for, of course, the least possible amount of risk. So guys, hopefully that has made a bit of sense. Again, actually, HBAR's my number 1 holding and XLM's like my number 3 holding as well. So I love both these projects, but this is for all you people out there asking that overhead question, okay? So thank you again for watching this video. I really appreciate every single one of you supporting the channel. And if you have liked today's video, please drop a like on the video and subscribe. I do 2 videos every single day. Take good care, guys. Talk soon. Bye.